In the previous video, I talked about basically having to futz around with MIDI messages and controllers and perhaps also futz around with adjusting note lengths to enhance the realism in our mockups. Now, of course, I'm going to be going into detail about all that stuff in upcoming tutorials, but maybe, possibly, you're wondering what's all the fuss, Gus? After all, shouldn't there be a reasonable expectation that after you've spent good money on a sample library, that you should be able to play your keyboard and achieve a realistic sound right out of the box without all the futzing? Well, yes and no. Now, sure, the sounds in your libraries are going to be realistic because, after all, they're recordings of real instruments. But using them in the context of your music is a whole other matter. For example, listen to this cello sound. Now that's a sound from Kirk Hunter's Emerald Edition, which is a pretty old library. It's one of the first ones I ever bought. It's for Logic's EXS24 sampler, and I still love it. There's something about the emotion of the way those notes were played that I just gravitate towards. But now let's hear that same part played using Vienna Instruments Special Edition solo cello. It's a totally different vibe, right? Now, one way to look at samples is that each one is a snapshot of an emotional musical moment performed by a musical artist when they were being sampled. And to capture those moments in a sampling session, musicians are asked to record every note one at a time at different dynamic levels and with all manner of different articulations. You can just imagine how tedious the process must be. But despite that, no musician, whether they're in a sampling session or performing in front of royalty, wants to play a single note with any less than their utmost. So whether it's a silly-sounding staccato bassoon blip or a beautifully performed lone cello note, every sample is a snapshot of musical expression. But okay, so now you have this sample library with all these individually captured emotional musical moments that were recorded under the direction of a sample library producer, not you, in the context of whatever style or tempo of music you're writing. And what do? You try and piece together note after note of these individual emotional musical moments in the hopes that they'll translate emotionally to suit your musical intentions. It's almost like when we use samples, we're writing a musical ransom note composed of some other people's ideas of how those notes should be played. It's really kind of a crazy concept, right? Thing is, we can use samples to create effective orchestral illusions if we have access to the samples that most closely match the kinds of musical emotion we're trying to express. In the little cello piece I played a few moments ago, the sample library in my collection that comes closest to expressing the melancholy of the music is the Kirk Hunter cello. By comparison, the Vienna Instruments solo cello just sounds too harsh and austere and stiff. Now, lots of people hold the Vienna Instruments libraries in very high regard, and deservedly so. Some musicians will even take a stand, as I've seen so many times on internet discussion forums, and absolutely insist that Vienna libraries are the best. But that's not the case here. So which sample library is the best? Well, here's my take on this. There isn't and couldn't possibly be an inherently, categorically, inarguably, indubitably best library. If there was such a thing, it would work for every conceivable style or tempo of music, and there'd only be one sample library and we'd all use it. And taking the comparison of the two different cello sounds you just heard into account, the difference in instrumental tone and musical emotion, musical expression of the two different musical artists who were sampled in two different parts of the world for two different sample library producers, Well, it kind of proves the point that there couldn't possibly be a best sample library. So for me, the best sample library is whichever one is the most appropriate for the style of music you're writing. Or if your music encompasses various or shifting moods, which combination of sample libraries come closest to portraying the kind of musical emotion your music requires. And whichever ones those are the best sample libraries. And this is one of the reasons why composers and orchestrators use multiple sample libraries, so that we have at our disposal a palette of different styles of musical expression, different vibes, if you will, and from that collection, choose the right feel, the right vibe, the right style of playing that most closely matches the musical emotion we're trying to express. So for the Little Sad Cello piece, the Kirk Hunter was the best, but for other pieces of music, I've used the Vienna Solo Cello because for that vibe, it was the best.